Okay, so let's open up questions to the panel from the audience. Let's start like that. Who has a question? And address the speaker who you would like a reply from, please. Actually, we can also form a line down the middle, so you can pass the mic off if people can form a line who want to ask some questions. And please do say the name of the speaker that you're addressing the question to. Thank you.
Okay, this question is for you, Mark, and I'm will. Okay. Right in front of the table. Okay. This question is for Mark Passio. I've been following your podcasts and been getting a real education out of what I've learned from those podcasts. So first, I want to thank you for making that available to the public and that information available to the public. There's in your seminar today, you talked about the importance of balancing the two hemispheres of the brain. What would be, in your opinion, the best technique in order for accomplishing that goal?
Well, I talk about in those podcasts 3 modalities of thought. So for the right-brained imbalanced individual who chronically does not stand up for themselves, may have feelings of self-loathing, an exercise technique, or addictive tendencies, these are all hallmarks of right-brained imbalance. Not taking abuse, like maybe verbally or psychologically, okay? And not having the courage to stand up and say, no, I have more self-respect than that. These are hallmarks of right brain imbalance. A technique for balancing the brain toward the center, if one is already in the right hemispherical imbalance, is the modality of thought called concentration. This engages and utilizes the left brain hemisphere. And it means concentration. Con, Latin, together, center, centration, at eye on, okay? Concentration. Together, nice. Center, at eye on. So that's bringing it to the center from imbalance to the right. If you're imbalanced to the left brain hemisphere, as most people who come out of the indoctrination system of the Western education system, okay? Meditation is the form that will balance it toward from the left toward the right to the center, and it also means at the center, middle, right, at eye on, right? And then there's one that unifies the two and keeps them there. So you don't sway from left to right, you stay in the center. And that is the lost mode, okay, of thought. And that's contemplation, which is neither concentration nor meditation, but a synthesis of the two. And that's also, if you break the word down, con, together, temple, right? Temple, at eye on. Amazing, right in the words. So contemplation is actually a mystery school modality of thought as well, and that will keep that centered once it is arrived at.
How does that differ from meditation?
It is the active process of meditating. So it is not going into deep meditation, but also not going into deep concentration. Another word for it is daydreaming. And that's why it is so discouraged.
Thank you.
This is for Mark Passio.
Directed to someone else.
No, but I do only have one question, okay. And it's for you.
All right. Next one's got to go to someone else.
Okay, all right. You talk a lot in your podcasts about natural law, and I'm wondering if you can unpack natural law.
I own me, you own you. There is no such thing as authority. Truth is authority. What we do is reverberated throughout space-time, comes back to us. We must experience what we do to each other. The law of one. We are all one consciousness sharing the same experience, and we create our reality by the choices that we make, and that comes together collectively to create the shared reality. And if you want to go more into detail with that, check out my podcast number 36. I do an extensive presentation on natural law in that one, and there's an accompanying slideshow. I have yet to get that on video, but I'm going to attempt to do so soon. I don't know when, but soon.
Can we ask questions
to each other? Yeah,
sure. Yeah. I have a question to you too. So first of all, this doesn't work. Doesn't work? Okay. I'm your biggest fan. So you said that you belong to the satanic church. How did you decide to leave that group, and what happened? Why you aren't a member of the Satanic Church anymore?
Immense suffering. Immense suffering is why I decided to leave that group. Natural law caught up with me. That's the answer in short. And the answer as to, I was in a place where the only way to go was up or to the grave. That's it. And you would not want to have known me then, is all I have to say. The answer to the second part is, what did they think? Completely unconcerned. That was their reaction. It was, knock yourself out trying to wake up the dead, kid. Get out of our face now. That was their reaction. Because it was Cub Scouts in comparison to where the hierarchy goes. I was not privy to crimes or internal dealings. I was only working ideologically with them in spreading their ideology. So, since I had nothing on direct criminal evidence, it was like he has nothing overt, just what we psychologically believe in. So it was like a pat on the back, and now go away, you bother us, and good luck banging your head up against the wall for the rest of your life. But I'm going to prove them wrong.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take some more questions from the audience, and then we have some questions for the audience as well. So now we get to ask you guys the questions. Go ahead.
Hi, this question goes to anybody who can answer this. I've recently noticed when I take pictures with my camera, I'm picking up these orbs, these little round, they're sort of cellular looking things. They look like they have energy emanating from around them. But they've been here all weekend. I've got a lot of pictures of them, and they'll be posted. And they're all around you guys right now, so I'm wondering if anybody knows what they are. I'm real curious, so anybody who can answer it.
Will you accept dust as an answer? No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
I won't accept dust.
Use the trivium and remove all other possibilities first.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of different views of what orbs are. One view is that they're actually interdimensional beings or interdimensional craft. And the nanotechnology of interdimensional craft is that an orb, which you see in a photograph that big, could actually be 5 miles wide. And that's actually been scientifically proven, where craft that come in, this being a water-bearing planet, many civilizations come in here to take water from our planet to go elsewhere. And they will come into this dimension through their nanotechnologies as very small dots expand to craft 2 or 3 miles wide, take up water, collapse into a small dot, and leave. And there are different views. One view is that these are interdimensional beings, but they could also be interdimensional nanocraft.
I should speak to that because orbs are one of the aspects, as you saw in my movie, those of you who did. I think it's in the short version. Did you see an orb? Yeah. They, as opposed to just floating around in crop circles, they're seen. They catch them on film. Sometimes the photographer doesn't know it, and they see it after they've filmed it. And sometimes they actually see them and they trail them, but they're moving across the fields. And typically, the day after an orb is seen, one day, and then the evening comes, and you wake up the next morning, and there's a crop circle in the field that went over. But I'll just tell you one wonderful story. The footage wasn't really clear enough to put in my movie, but it was taken by one of the people in my movie, and when she shows you and explains to you what you're looking at, you can see what it is. There's an orb that's traveling across, horizontally across, and then there are people somebody standing inside a circle photographing this. And there are people walking into the circle down those tram lines, which is how people get in. It's the tractor lines that they do all the fertilizing and, you know, the machinery that goes into the fields. So people are walking in, and this orb is coming across. The people don't see it. The people come to where the orb would hit them. The orb stops. The people keep walking. They're just walking. When the people pass, the orb goes by. So there's some kind of intelligent guidance. That's happened more than once where we've seen that the orb relates to what the people are doing. So there's no definitive evidence about what the orb is doing. You know, we don't. There is one of the crop circle researchers has a, I don't know if you call it a theory, he speaks about it as fact, as if yes, orbs are making crop circles, but it never held water for me. I could never see that his evidence really, where you could conclude that from his evidence, but you can conclude that there's some kind of intelligent guidance that's going on. Not necessarily at all of them, but certainly some of them.
If I could follow up on that, I've collected a number of orbs photographs in Washington State, including at the ECETI Ranch of James Gilliland and off of somebody's balcony in Gig Harbor, Washington. I have a very discrete view of the orbs just based on the evidence. First of all, many of them possess ontology. In other words, there's a life form inside the radiant bubble of the orb. They also seem to be sentient beings in the sense that they respond to emotion. So during times of great positive energy, for example, a conference like this, the orbs actually cluster. Now, the different types of shapes and faces that I've seen include humanoids like us, as well as the faces of animals that we find here on Earth. And there's some clear, higher level intelligence and emotion indicated in some of the orbs. For example, off of the balcony there in Gig Harbor, I photographed about 100 orbs. Maybe about 70 of them contained faces, and one of them was of two gray extraterrestrials within a heart that we would associate with love. So I think they're life forms. They may be, for example, the spirits that the Native American and other indigenous people who were living at a higher level of love and consciousness as groups were regularly perceiving. I think one of the exciting things about the time that we're living in is the veils are coming down, and we're now seeing them as a result of, I think, the shift in consciousness that's occurring, and also just the advance of digital technology, which is allowing us to see the holographic nature of these sentient beings.
I'd like to chime in for a brief moment on that and ask a question to my friend Tim, who posed the question. Do I have your permission to tell them why you asked that question? Because you'll be swamped by people if I tell them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Tim asked that question because while we were setting up for this conference, he took many pictures around the hall, and clusters of orbs were everywhere in here, and he has the digital photos on his camera still. So if some people want to see him or speakers want to see him, he can show them to you, but don't totally swamp him. But that's why he asked. And I feel it was because some intelligences may be overseeing what we're doing here and looking upon it favorably. That's my intuitive feeling about the whole thing. So they're incredible shots of them, and I do not believe that they are dust.
On the website of the conference, maybe some of those photos.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch. So, let's see 1 second. Yeah, I got a whole lot from the whole weekend, every speaker, and so we'll post that. I just want to follow up. I have noticed faces inside the orbs. Noticed them with open mouths and smiles and things. And I also noticed, like, I went to a music festival, and there was just an immense amount. So it seems like they like music. They like positive vibes. I think they like the consciousness that's here and the positive vibrations everybody's giving off. So they're here with us. And hello.
Thank you so much. Great question.
Hey, yeah, I mean, I have my name's Ryan. I'm the sound guy, and I do all the event coordinating
Give it up for Ryan, ladies
here
and
at the
gentlemen.
Aruba Club. And thanks. This is great for me. I've learned a lot of stuff. You have reinforced, all of you, a lot of concepts that I already feel and believe. I'm going to kind of reiterate on what is going on here. I'm a musician. I have a big question for all of you regarding music. I learned this term quadrivium today. and music is apparently part of that. Music is my religion, literally. If I dare use that term. My friends, a couple of friends of mine that are in this room would know that as well. I have so many questions about bass, low-end frequencies, what you can do with them, how people respond to them, how other cultures and intelligences would respond to low-end frequencies. I use them all the time. When I say it's my religion, like Muslims have Mecca, well, London is my Mecca. And if you know anything about electronic music, you know that London is the home base of that. And drums, rhythm, bass, very important. For me, I always felt like there was a lot of communication possibilities through things that we use words and, this misguided English language that everybody talks about. And I guess my question to you is, first of all, yeah, there's probably tons of orb in this building. This building attracts so much creativity, you have no friggin' clue, all right? And even an event like this is just a perfect example of the music that comes here, the art that comes to this building. This building is very old. I was not surprised at all that there's all sorts of things that you would feel, see, touch, that don't exist in other parts of Philadelphia or even other parts of the world because of the history of this building and the creativity, like I said, that comes here. Having said that, my question to anybody in the panel, if anybody can give me some sort of insight, is my entire life I felt that rhythm and particularly bass have been so important to me, and literally in deep part of my spirituality. When people sound like I say I'm crazy when my religion is a style of music, they think I'm nuts. Am I right? Is there something? Do you have any sort of insight? Can you fill me in on what I'm missing? There's something I know cosmically that I don't understand. I understand it to a certain point unconsciously, and the psychic abilities that I have as a musician, because all musicians do, are a little bit psychic. You always know what's going to happen right before it happens. Give me some insight, please.
Great question. Let's start with Jan, and then we'll work our way down.
But when you get into studying the trivium, you'll find, and the trivium is math, geometry, music, and astronomy, which are all intricately related together. And the best book right now out on the quadrivium is by Wooden Books, and I had John Martineau, the publisher, on my show recently. I also had Jason Martineau on my show last week, who our topic was the spiritual dimensions of music, so I'm sure you'll love that. But what the quadrivium shows is that there's, it ties into the Kabbalah and many different areas, but that the motions of the planets are creating or at least as far as we can tell, creating a harmony and a frequency or a vibration in their orbits, and all of the planets are in specific point. If anything is taken out of 1 degree of its orbit and how it's placed within all of the other planets in the entire solar system, the entire system falls apart. So my thought on that is that maybe your affinity for bass is tied in through that somehow, but your study of the quadrivium itself would provide you your own answers for yourself.
Just Small World. John Martineau's in my movie.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I have
Go ahead.
answered.
No, this one.
This one? In my presentation, I showed the pictures with shamans playing drums in order to contact the interdimensional beings. So this was the part of the religion in ancient Turkish tribes, because we were sharing the same rituals, same belief system, same symbolism with Native Americans, Indians of South America, Central America, and North America. Originally, we are coming from the same source. So music, drums, and rhythm was always a very important tool to contact with the other dimension, other side, other beings.
That reminds me, actually, one of the biggest influences on me when I was just discovering my own spirituality, we'll say, was Rumi. Rumi was a Sufi mystic, whoever doesn't know, and a whirling dervish, if you've ever heard the term whirling dervishes.
Yes.
Whirling dervishes would surround themselves with drummers, they would have a huge drum circle, they would twirl and twirl and twirl themselves into a fit of ecstasy, and then they would recite poetry that was sent from the
It's the
divine.
contact.
It was a
Yeah.
Sufi mystic. That just reminds me,
It's
especially
all-
that part of the world.
Yeah.
Same type of intelligence.
They represent the cosmic balance, the cosmic movement. Another thing, when I was coming this time, I wanted to bring something to my friend Michael Falsetta, and I gave him a music CD. It belongs, the composer is one of my friends in Turkey. His name is Tuluhan Uğurlu. He's an international composer. He makes only spiritual music. And years ago, he was working with NASA. NASA hired him. And what they wanted him to do was to compose music, to make music, looking at the pictures of the space and galaxies taken by the Hubble telescope. That's why they hired him. And he has many albums, many CDs of music inspired by the space. The reason is that a portion of NASA wanted to contact with extraterrestrial beings through music. They wanted to use the music as a communication tool. Just like we saw in Steven Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, at the end of the movie, they were communicating with music. So, yes.
I mean, thank you so much. You couldn't have answered my question any better. And it makes so much sense. I have a deep field Hubble picture on my business card from my music production company.
Neat.
I mean, I've been studying astronomy since I was disgustingly young, and a total geek in the closet with an astronomy book, by myself. And once again, communication. I don't do many things well. I think I talk okay, and so I feel like that's the key, and that's literally kind of what I was alluding to. I'm like, is what I'm trying to do, the music that I make, and is it in some way trying to reach, or is it a good way? I guess is my better question. Is it a good way to possibly speak with other people in other dimensions from other galaxies? Yeah.
All right,
Thank
let's
you very
allow
much.
Laura to respond, and then we'll move on to some other questions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, drumming and the bass, and I mean, I've always thought, because I'm a drummer, it's like dancing with the heartbeat of Gaia. It's the music of consciousness. It's right from the soul and the heart, and it has a sound healing effect. It clears the chakras. And what's really incredible, one time I was drumming up in the mountains and with a group of people, and there was steam on all the windows everywhere. And it was just incredible because it was just, pure steam when we got there, just because it was sort of humid. And we had been drumming and drumming and drumming. Then all of a sudden, the steam created mandalas, like the water vapors disappeared, and each window had a different type of mandala. And so to me, you would see like the flower of life, and different sorts of patterns that really do represent just sort of what we all are to each other as the human web of life with nature and cosmos, and so the drums really open one up to all those dimensions, and it was really neat to see that firsthand. So,
All
but
right,
I can,
I'm ready to
Rob,
listen
Rob,
to
could I
music,
follow up?
and sure, yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
just like to say, parenthetically, in your love of bass, you definitely have something in common with the orbs. They tend to gather when the Australian Aboriginal instrument, the didgeridoo, is played.
Right.
So there's definitely a vibratory connection between music and contact with extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings. I think the explanation for why the bass may resonate at the level of your soul is bass tones have a very long frequency, as do our souls, which in fact, while we're physically mortal, we possess an eternal soul. So I would suggest that bass tones remind you of that fact, that your soul is going to last a very long time, in fact, forever.
Hey, Andrew, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I heard when you listen to the sounds of the didgeridoo, that it actually releases DMT in the brain naturally, and it creates an effect to put you in a stance, a meditative stance, if you will, a trance, I meant to say. But let me quickly address the music thing real quick and say that there's conscious musicians out there. Payday Monsanto, a local here in Philadelphia, various different musicians speaking about the themes that we talk about in our talks. And it's a great tool for for getting the message out. So I want to applaud any musician who's able to use that to get the message out in these serious times that we're living in. One last quick thing. Leonard Horowitz has been talking about this certain frequency. Oh, thank you very much. Leonard Horowitz has been talking about frequency, some sort of frequency in which we listen to music, and through that frequency, and I'm sure people can fill in the gaps better than I can on this, we hear the tones in a different state so that it's in I guess the love frequency, or I'm not sure of the details, but check that out. That's Leonard Horowitz's new thing. Thanks for the question, Ryan. Thanks
I wanted
for
to
the hard work.
add one more comment to that, especially regarding the mandalas. If you get into, and going back to John Martineau, who's in her video, John Martineau has published a book on harmonics and it's also in the Quadrivium book series, which is 6 books in one. But in the harmonics book, it goes into sound vibrations and the creation of mandalas and patterns. So if you put, if we put sound on the table and we were to play one tone through the table, the sound would form into a specific pattern based on that single audible tone.
Very cool stuff. Yes, let's get another question. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Actually, it was from the young man that was talking about. Oh. Okay. All right. It was from the young man that was just talking about the orbs, and then your answer to it that sparked this question. I live a very paranormal life when it comes to in between the astral world, where with ghostly figures, to the angelic realm, all the way to the extraterrestrial realm. And it seems like now, I also was at the Ascetis Ranch, and when I was at the Ascetis Ranch, it was like all the orbs there just they come and it's almost like when I walked out the door around 2 o'clock in the morning, I had to walk back into the door because they just slammed themselves into me. And then at the same time, and then I would have all these paranormal experiences throughout that night. And then also the same thing with, what I noticed is that when I was in my 30s, somebody took a picture of me, and there was this huge orb. I mean, it was huge. It was probably about the size of my own body, right above my head. And then also, and I also have a friend who has this tube-like orb, and she has like 4 pictures, and she sent them to me. And what it looks like a tube that goes right into here, and then it looked like that there was an extraterrestrial being inside that tube that was attached to her. And of course, she's also a channeler, and I channel myself. And so my question is that the reality to that, because every time that it just seems like, even when I was up in Superstition Mountain in Arizona, I was walking the desert, and then all of a sudden, all these green orbs, and they felt almost like they were, almost as if they were flying saucers, you know? Oh, okay. Well, and then they were just coming through my body, and then all of a sudden, more paranormal experiences were occurring for me. So, what is that?
I think that you're pointing up the mystery of the orbs as it now exists.
Yeah, and how it relates to people. Why would they be so attracted to myself and others?
Well,
like me?
if they're attracted to other life forms, I'm just suggesting that that's evidence that they are life forms rather than, for example, thought forms or projections or guided objects from a life form. I think the mystery is exactly what you're pointing up, which is the evidence shows that some look like what we would consider extraterrestrials from the UFO contact literature. Some are faces of human beings, and some of them rather impassive faces of human beings, almost as if they've been pulled off of people's driver's licenses. Some have very indistinct facial features that are hard to even perceive. They look sort of like little geometric nature sprites. And at the Gilliland property there in Trout Lake, Washington, at ECETI, I captured a photograph of an orb that was simply a green salamander inside the radiant bubble of the orb. So presumably they're life forms because they respond emotionally to high energy human activities, as if they swarm in and just feed off the positive energy. I don't believe the literature that suggests that they feed off of negative energy. Certainly, I haven't seen any animated orb photographs from a cemetery, for example, although people have alleged they photographed them at cemeteries. Yeah.
Yeah, just a very brief note. In the aerosol spray chemtrail photographs, there are many photographs that show planes spraying aerosols or chemtrails and their orbs around them. And so there's a lot of speculation as to what the orbs are exactly and what their function is. And one speculation is that the orbs may be an intelligence force attempting to counteract the effect of the chemtrails. And there are other places in the extraterrestrial literature, notably the interactions with the Regional Galactic Governance Council, mentioned by people like former NORAD, the former Canadian NORAD officer, Stan Fulham, and also a former Spanish NATO intelligence officer, both of whom were contacted by a Regional Galactic Governance Council, saying that they are intervening to counteract the effects of aerosol spraying and chemtrails. So you'll find orbs around chemtrail spraying. So everybody's trying, we're all speculating as to what they might be doing.
Okay, so are they, one of my questions is because are they is there something that, are they using these entities? Because I remember one time an Indian actually came to me and told me its whole life story through an orb. So are they using me in order to communicate information? These are the things that I'm trying to figure out myself. I'm not worried about it or anything like that, but it's very curious.
The orbs seem to be light body emanations that sentient life forms inhabit to reach us interdimensionally. So if that Native American stepped out of time space and not a conventional space, that would explain it. He needed to use an orb to enter your environment and communicate with you in that manner. I was just pointing out the fact that what we've seen in the orbs is really all of the above. Animals. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad the orbs are doing something about the chemtrails, Alfred, because we need to do something about it, and if we can't do it, well, who knows? Maybe we'll have to rely on the orbs. Let's take the next question, please.
Hi, thank each one of you for your courage and leadership. Everything was awesome, really, thank you. Question I had, one little quick one is, when's the next conference, and is there going to be bigger space, because you're going to need it?
Let me ask the audience a question. Do they want another conference? The next conference will happen.
All right, but more importantly, I wanted to maybe quickly have you guys just go down the line. And what do you see as the most exciting thing that's going to happen, say, in our lifetime? Andrew, I know you've mentioned something about the veil being lifted, but I was just curious what each one of you think, just real quick.
Great. Let's start with Aaron McCullum.
So, your question is, what is the most
exciting thing to you that's going to happen in, say, our lifetimes here in the universe, in the world here?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I think that there's steps that we need to take. There's a lot of people that see with a lot of hope that it's going to be almost like we're going to wake up one day and, all the elitists and the bankers and the cajoles are going to come out and say, oh, we give up, we're tired of playing this game, and that there's going to be some kind of ascension thing, and the players are going to come down and say, don't worry, we're saving the day, da-da-da-da, it's going to be like this whole grandiose thing, Mardi Gras, yada, yada, yada. That's a bunch of bull. So it's got to be taken in steps, and steps start with all of you out there, and it starts with being non-compliant. It starts with things with making more demonstrations, making yourself more present, demanding disclosure, and taking the real ways, proper actions of doing that. It is demanding that the courts tear down their admiralty flags and move the gates and having a real system to break down the entire corrupt infrastructure. And of course, by doing that, by being proactive, you also cause yourself to raise your vibration, to self-ascend, because no one outside force is going to do this for us. So what do I see as being very exciting? And I don't know when, but at some point, there's going to be enough people that are going to get pissed off, and they're going to say, we have had enough, and we are going to take all this racism, religion, political views, I don't like your hair, I don't like your face, yada, 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 crap, and we're going to throw it all aside. We're going to say, you know what? In the end, we're all human beings, and we need to learn how to coexist.
Great answer. All right, let's try to just give a couple liners. That way we can get through all the panelists. Andrew?
I would have to say that around 2020, live on YouTube Live, I'm going to be cutting the red ribbon at Grand Central Teleport in New York City.
Yeah. And we'll be waiting for that.
Yeah, no, it'll be, here's my scenario. 2011, we're here. As has been stated, around 2015 or so, a cleansing of the Earth's atmosphere by the Regional Galactic Governance Council. Around 2023, the landing of Christ's Sophia consciousness on the planet for those who are here in an ascended fashion. And in 2025, the landing of an objective condition of paradise on Earth.
The short and sweet of it, in my opinion, is it has to do with each individual person's perspective or reference point. I don't think that everybody's going to see the exact same thing because it depends on their belief or their truth. So depending where they're at in their awareness is what they're going to see. Somebody that's aligned in a three-dimensional frame of mind that's all doom and gloom and negative, that's what they're going to create because of law of attraction. However, if you're in a higher perspective and you're thinking all positive thoughts and you're looking at the utopia world that's before us and the highest potential of humanity, I think that's what you're going to attract. I think it all depends on your perspective.
And again, like Joe, I'm thinking on the higher plane also. I believe that there's be community, people working together as one, and that's what we're headed for. We probably will have breakdown, some more breakdown before that occurs, but it's like out of the ashes the phoenix will rise, and I see that coming in the next few years. I don't see that being a long time from now.
Laura?
Well, what I look forward to is our inevitable victory and the fact that we cannot get arrested for being in a mode of ascension, being in an awakening state. It's something that travels far and wide. It's something that we all connect the dots with. We don't, really have to think in terms of strategizing till we go crazy, because that's what I was doing for a while. I was writing huge things that I was going to go to all the police academies and talk to all those that are being used for this and work it in that way and create some sort of ability to go on some sort of police academy tour. And then I'm like, well, no, I wake up in the morning, well, maybe this idea. And then, but in my heart of hearts, I've always had this vision. I've always known in just dreams when I was younger that it would just be something that gradually comes in, something that is so illuminated and so wonderful that Jacob's ladder is something that everybody will see and have the ability to climb, and we will find our freedom. And it all starts with our own soul alchemy. It starts with the work of the internal, and that everybody will take the responsibility and do that soul work, and that the victory, which is inevitable, is ours.
I don't want to answer to this question.
No comment from Farah.
Can I skip this one?
Okay, so Lady Gaga takes an interest in the crop circles and she calls a press conference, and the rest is history.
I'd like to see the increase or I hope to see the increase in the use of critical thinking and fact-checking in the questions who, what, where, when, why, and how, and so that we can all begin to see through the lies and deception and manipulations that are out there. I also want to make a statement that we have to be very careful about accepting any idea of a utopian society that's brought before us, because the Platonists, the New World Order, if you go back and you read Plato's Republic, if you go back and you read Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, that's all Platonist philosophy, and they are trying to sell us a fake utopia, so be very careful of that.
Well, what I look forward to seeing is people taking back their minds and listening to Jan and taking his advice and becoming their own teachers, their own gurus. And I know that if enough people on the planet get conscious, you will actually disempower the gods of the Illuminati.
Exactly.
I'd say what I'm looking for has already begun, which is the ability of human beings to become human. We have really cool technologies. We can make big machines. We can blow each other up with them. But I see very recently, in the last 10 years, an exponential growth in the people who are literally able to think about the concept that they own themselves. I know maybe 6 people 10 years ago who all the way understood that they belong to themselves and are beholden to no authority. Now I know 6,000 at least. I think humanity is starting. Homo sapiens was a very successful species as a stupid, violent animal. Now we're starting humanity.
Larkin Rose, and now Freeman Fly.
Well, I think the question was, what's going to amaze us in the future, right? And, you know, I might have a few answers for that. Honestly, right now is the most amazing time I've ever imagined, you know. And to see the things that I see or the way I see it, and seeing the fact that our president may be a clone, to start to look into time control technologies and the Norway spiral, CERN, HAARP, and all of these new things. Once you start to put these pieces of the puzzle together, you realize that we have transmission devices that would make it possible then for us to transmit ourselves mentally and perhaps even future physically through other dimensions or to other planets. And so right now, humanity, with the stem cell research, with cloning technologies and mind transfers technologies, coupled with CERN, ISCAT, SURA, and HAARP, actually gives us the potential to live forever and travel the galaxy. Now this is a very 3D answer, and I know it's not the mystical answer as we've been going, but this is what I see as some of the most amazing things that we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have to contemplate the idea of what is a clone, and are they human? Are they real beings? We're going to have to deal with, are we in the same timeline we were 5 minutes ago? Or did somebody go back and start a new time war? We're going to have to deal with spatial dimensions opening and incoming extraterrestrials. And all of this, I believe, will be in the next few years as this starts to unveil. And then what I would love to see is all of you out there digging in the dirt, planting some great food so that we could all just eat and love one another.
Okay, I second that notion of planting your own food, and what will amaze me is that if we don't see our economic system collapse, if we don't see the powers that shouldn't be collapse and fall to their knees, the tiny dot, as Larkin Rose puts it, behold all of us, here we are standing strong, and behold the revolution. Thank you.
I'll be very brief with this one. I think, my answer to this will start with the word if, and that is if enough people simultaneously call attention to the darkness that is taking place here on this planet while simultaneously embodying the light, as the famous saying goes, the power of love will conquer the love of power. And just very, very briefly, once the speaker panel discussion does break up, I'd like to ask everyone just to remain, because I do have one more brief piece of business that I'd like to do on the stage. So once the panel discussion is over, one more thing. There will be one more thing.
All right, great. Let's get through some quick questions because we are limited on time. So let's go ahead.
Real quick then, I want to thank everybody up there for just an amazing weekend, and I'm reminded of Hunter Thompson's phrase that when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro, and you guys are heroes. But one of the questions I have, and one of the tricky things that I'm kind of trying to deal with is, like, I feel this thing about these oppressors or these beings or people that are so evil, and somewhere inside ourselves we have to find love for these people. And I'm kind of wrestling with how do we open ourselves up to be loving to these creatures or beings that are so oppressive without being a victim to them. And I was just wondering if you have any strategies for...
Let's hear a quick response from Laura and then Freeman.
Really, people wake up when something hits home. They normally stay asleep unless, as long as everything goes well and they have their TV and they have their jobs and they have their nice clothes and everything's going normal, they stay asleep. And so every time there's a disaster, every time that they're using HAARP, and any time that they're really affecting us, poisoning us, and harming us, they're actually creating our own wake-up for those people, because they're going to soon discover, wait a second, why is my child poisoned? Why does my kid have autism? All these activists out here that are putting out the truth, they're going to be looking at those websites. So we can thank them, thank the enemy, thank the adversary for allowing those that don't normally come into this world awakened to have that chance through having that insult turn into an awakening. So thank the enemy.
What needs to be realized is that these people are victims as well. More than likely, HW was performing rituals on W while he was still in the womb. This boy man never had a choice. He never had a selection. He can't be as evil as we think he is because he did not intend to do this. He was forced and controlled. As we look to Britney Spears and how she's been used in goddess rituals put in front of us left and right, it's not her fault. She did not select to do this. She was taken out of a home. When you look to all of the mind control slaves that have been used as tools against each and every one of us, you must feel sorrow for them and love and empathy, because you can't. I remember how many people said, oh, I'm so glad that bitch is dead when Anna Nicole died. And this was a ritual murder that she had just suffered. And so we need to recognize that they are victims as well, and then that allows us to get more empathy for them.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'm sorry. I'm sure we all can address that, but let's move on. Thanks so much for the question. And yeah, they are sick, and we need to care for them. All right, go ahead.
Okay, this is, I guess, on the back end of what he just said. So, all right, Aaron put it very well when he said, like, we have, like, the slave mentality, and we need to move into the free will mentality, and then we have, like, the hate, and we need to move into, like, the love and light. Well, unlike, like, a lot of you guys and maybe some of the other people in here, not all of us, like, had weird bloodlines or, like, were born seeing stuff and, like, whatever. So can, like, maybe you give, like, a quick, like, easy example. So when you have that anger, when you have that hate, or when you're feeling, like, oppressed, or weird thoughts are coming in your head, because this has been happening to me, like, a lot lately and stuff, like, give me a quick something you can do that goes, so, you know what, Blam, let me bring me back to me. So this isn't, like, so overwhelming, just something simple, something quick and easy. Well, maybe not easy, but something I know that I can do that's going to help, and maybe it'll help some people.
Study the trivium.
It's not that easy.
So you sound like you have a lot going on. Okay. I did an interview not too long ago. It's on my website about explaining in depth on the spectrums, and I'm going to be doing a write-up about it. So I'm not going to get into too much detail right now because we don't have much time. But here's what I want you to do. I'm going to say something real quick. I'm going to relay something that my wife always says. One, she's got this little post-it on our fridge that says, the body does what the mind tells it to do. And she's always constantly reminding me, because I have my own little defects, about the essential power of creating your own reality. Okay? Now, I want you to do something for me. When you go home tonight, when you've kind of wound down from everything, you just need to simply look in the mirror, and you look at yourself square in the face and you say, what do I really want? And that's all you got to ask. Okay? Yes, not everyone was born into a bloodline like me, and not everyone was subject to things like I was. But nobody here is limited on at least understanding both sides of the emotional spectrum and the free will spectrum. And I don't want to take up too much time, so anyone that wants to know more, hit me up later. I can give you my website where I've got more information about that, and will be coming up.
Mark, did you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I would just say embrace everything. It's your path. You know, what is the lesson here for me to learn? If you resist it, it persists. Embrace it. There's something here for your growth and evolution.
I would say focus on your own work. Be a Dharma bum in the sense that you want to do the footwork and let the universe take care of the rest. And don't even evaluate the performance of others. Just let it go. Don't project. And just focus on your own mission in life without criticism of others.
All great advice.
All great advice. Thank you so much. All right, let's jump through the last 3 questions. 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm from Connecticut. I'm 21. It's my youth. I have a lot of friends out in Connecticut.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I have a bunch of friends in Connecticut. That's where I'm from, and I'm here and they're not, It's like I go back to them, but what am I to tell them? They go home, do everything that their parents do. They get vaccinated. I see everyone's just like getting sicker. Food everyone eats. Everyone wants to follow the leader, and it's like everyone here, we still pay taxes. You all got cell phones. It's like, you try to grow food, Monsanto's will get you, You try to do this,
What's the question?
My question is, how can I help, get this thing moving, get my, all my friends see the light, It's like I tell them, you guys are talking about aliens, UFOs and stuff. It's like, I haven't seen anything of, proof. That's just
Teach your friends critical thinking and how to question things so that they learn how to derive their own answers and look at the information without dismissing what you're saying, right off the bat. Teach them to spot the logical fallacies so that they begin to see through the veil on their own, and then they will see all of the other stuff.
I'll chime in on that because I feel the pain inherent in your question. I understand. From my perspective, a lot of people in my friends and family are asleep as well. And what I would say is, to tell you the truth, I think one of the best phrases that was brought out here during the conference was the end of Freeman's lecture, who just simply said, plant some seeds. When people see events taking place that are coming up rapidly toward us, they will understand that what you had said to them in hindsight is true. Now, will that be too late? Perhaps. But perhaps it will activate that person and the seed will sprout.
Okay, thanks so much for the question. Quick response from Larkin Rose, and then we'll get to the last 2 questions.
I know it can be horrendously frustrating if you have this thing and you know it to be the truth and somebody doesn't pay any attention. And I went in front of 12 people and said, you're being robbed. And they said, go sit in a cage for a year. So thanks a lot. But I think it's important to understand we cannot make anyone choose to look at any truth, nor should we have that power. All we can do is stick it in front of them, and the one in a gazillion that opens their eyes, good for them. The rest, we have to just twiddle our thumbs and feel sorry for them and hope someday they choose to open their eyes.
Show them my...
Right. You can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Quick comment?
I just want to say, show them my DVD.
Yes, that's also...
Open their minds.
Great. And Laura, real quick, and then Andrew.
Everybody has something within them that is here to manifest their own wake-up call. There's nothing fun about having an insult awaken anybody, but it's a part of their unfolding. It's a part of something that they've come into this world to wake up to based on their own soul growth and experience. There's always a doorway to source energy and to freedom. And we just have to allow people to go through their process and offer them information and inspiration and help people to realize that that anything really can be healed, and that doctors and their doom scenarios and the way that they diagnose things, even if we are experiencing those insults, can be healed in very profound ways that can take people to levels they've never even been. So,
Andrew Bashago?
Yeah, I would say don't try to convince others of your truth. Just stand in your own truth and tell it. You're not trying to reach your family members and friends necessarily, because that's an artificial selection pressure. Focus on the nth human being, and in that sense, focus on everybody. It might be the person standing in line at the grocery store with you.
Okay, we'll get the last two in just a second. Go ahead.
I'd say become the example. And you don't want to try to push your truth on somebody else. Like they said, plant the seed, have your own discernment about you, speak your truth, and allow them to see and maybe plant that seed so they can rise above where their consciousness is at that particular time. But know that you're not responsible for anybody but yourself. We have to take our own responsibility back, and you can't feel bad for anybody else, even if it's your family member, whether it be your mother, your father. They've come into this thing with a consciousness that they knew they were going to be here at this particular time, learning their certain lessons. So take responsibility for yourself, plant the seed, become the example, and just allow everybody to be in their own perfection.
That's right. Okay, final two questions. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I was concerned that this thing kind of might slip through the cracks. And we know we're light activated and we're light encoded. We know our DNA is light activated. And in something like a year and a half, they're supposed to eliminate all incandescent lights. And I've seen the effects of some of these other lights. I've been in meditation with fluorescent lights, and they've interfered with the whole group. And I was wondering if any of you guys look at this as just yet another attempt, like with fluoride and vaccines and everything else, to control us.
Absolutely.
To keep us under.
Yeah,
under,
I think we all
wrap.
agree that that is another system of control, and then that's a change for this power structure. Go ahead with your next comment. Last comment. Oh, let me.
I just want to add two things there. So, in those light bulbs, there's a fluorine gas, which is a fluoride based, and then we're transmitting that fluoride frequency. And on top of that, they are now putting in the electronic grid that is a computer system within the powers, and so then they can, tweak the frequencies. Yeah.
Great question. Thanks so much. Last question of the conference, guys. Go ahead. The honor's yours.
Okay. Allow me to preface by saying I'm a 2012 agnostic. I've looked at research on both sides of the issue, and I'm finding a lot of reasons to be skeptical about both sides. And in the tradition of this conference, we're looking at mind control. I see a lot of propaganda being brought through Hearst Publishing's History Channel and through other outlets that are effectively engendering this fear factor. And so, to each of you, I'm wondering if you critically analyze this situation of advancing, for those of you who hypothecate this 2012 eschaton and whatever other quickening or shift may be occurring, do you consider the implications that you may in fact be perpetuating something that could be a psychological operation or some form of mind control in order to keep people in a state of effectively disempowering themselves, saying that we're going to be raptured, we're going to be saved by this event?
Okay, that's 2012, of course. Jan, you recently covered this.
Yes, I've actually had 3 shows on my podcast regarding the 2012 meme, and this week, in fact, I interviewed Professor John Hups from Kansas University, who's a good friend of mine. And for the last several years, he's been investigating every step of the development of the 2012 meme, from Jose Arguellos and Terrence McKenna and Daniel Pinchbeck and these guys. And he is also an expert in the ancient Maya studies, and there's no evidence to connect the Maya to a 2012 event. What he is interested in is the myths that are going to be created after the 2012 event. I actually agree with you that a lot of it is mind control, especially towards this, like I said earlier, be aware of the Platonist utopian idea. I'm not saying that all of it has to be disregarded. I think what is going to happen is that a lot of people will influence the change just because, or a change, some type of change, just because there's sheer will of it. But as far as any archaeological evidence or anything, we know exactly where 2012 originated, who originated it, and what books and what citations and everything down to the final point.
I'll let Laura answer it, but allow me to respond, and then Aaron and anybody else. I am also a 2012 agnostic, if you will. Terrence McKenna's Time Wave Zero stuff is absolutely fascinating. Take a close look at that in cooperation with Jay Wider's talk, as well as David David Wilcock. Yeah, I was too many names going through my head here. David Wilcock also does a great talk on that, and hopefully we'll see in 2012 another Free Your Mind conference, of course, and in addition to that, we should see a paradigm shift, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know. I think we need to keep an open mind and continue this paradigm shift. Aaron? Laura, I'm sorry. You're next.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say, because we were talking about self-knowledge and how important self-knowledge is, we have to look at the probability of our own timelines and not pay attention to the collective so much, because this is a very inner process. We are creating our own reality. 2012, whether we feel it's doom or whether we feel it's our ascension, is based on our own timing, our own growth, our own experiences. Also, astrologically speaking, Venus, Sun, and the Earth are lining up for 11 hours, which really represents the Venus energies returning. There are Venus transits, whether the Mayans picked up on it or not, and they were very astrologically aware. These cycles have been going on, and they've been turning the inverted pentagram upright again, drawing that line in the sky. And because I was much more based on self-knowledge than reading books, because I never really read books, I used my own processes to gauge what 2012 meant to me, and I only share it based on the fact that in unity consciousness, in sharing that information, not that people should match me, but that my birthday right now and year add up to 2011. I got voice analysis to make sure I wasn't mind controlled. I've gone deep into the astrology, deep into the sacred symbols, and deep into the esoteric and occult in order to turn all the inversions upright again. That's just my personal path. So for me, I know where I'm headed, and I just want to bring as many with me. And it's because it's a unified field. It's not a personal thing. And I've just had visions my whole life, and I let them test me to make sure I wasn't crazy too. Sound technologists, everybody, just.
All right, we'll finish with Aaron, and real quick, have you guys, and Alfred as well, and whoever else who wants to talk. And have you guys seen the 2012 movie that they did? What a joke! They paid $1 billion to go on an ark. What's that money going to do for that person they spent, if it's the end of the world like they present in that movie, where's that money going to go? So I see that movie as a big part of the mind control. I'm sorry, I wanted to interject. Go ahead, Aaron.
I don't subscribe to the doomsday crap of 2012, and I also have been labeled quite controversial at times because I don't subscribe to the whole ascension thing of 2012 either. As I explained yesterday, there is absolute scientific data by not just private researchers, but through Jet Propulsion Laboratory and NASA of some kind of magnetic anomaly that's already affecting this planet and the entire solar system. However, let me just add to what you were saying, and this is my answer. Whether you call it the truth movement, the New Age movement, the light workers, the truth seekers, the metaphysics, each and every one, to some extent, has been infiltrated by what's called COINTELPRO. This really began in the 60s with the civil rights movement. So, my advice for someone like you is, one, look at the absolute, undeniable proof of science research and documents through the Freedom of Information Act, okay? And then the only other thing that you can do is to just see what resonates with you. You got to listen to your gut. You don't listen to anyone else. You don't even listen to anything that we've said, so to speak, but you just take away from here what seems to make sense to you, and the rest will just come to surface as it's meant to.
Great. Alfred, final thought.
Yeah, there is in an evidentiary sense a 2012 script, and that is that the Illuminati or the Dark Force or whatever we want to call them are running a 2012 script. They are using the HAARP, chemtrail, aerosol weapon system. They are using the Gwen Tower system. They are using other technological systems. They are using the immigration system. They are using the war system where you control both sides of a war. That technology and they are using an end game scenario that ends up with 2012. And we've documented this. We call it the catastrophic timeline. And there is an acceleration of underground bases, of the digging of underground bases in the U.S. There's an acceleration of the digging of underground bases in Norway. There's one underground base that is for 5 million people. Half of that is 2.5 million for political and economic American elites in the U.S. Elites, you know. I'm sorry?
Alfred, if I may offer one of my own sources, on the Intel Hub radio show that I host on the Oracle Broadcasting Network, we actually had an owner of a company who builds these bases. In addition to this, he builds arcs made out of steel, and he told me off the air, he says, you know, are we off air? I said, yes. He says, the people who are asking for these to be built are these non-elites. You know.
Right. That's a letter from a gentleman who's involved in the digging of the base who leaked it. Okay, and you can go to our articles at exopolitics.com and look at that. And there's a lot of studies that look at a 2012 to 2013 catastrophic timeline, one that Andy's been involved in. And another one, a remote viewing, the largest remote viewing study involved the largest number of military trained remote viewers that saw in 2013, 39% of the remote viewers saw that there were no more coastline cities left. Okay? So, but we postulate that there's parallel to this, a positive timeline, that we're actually living in parallel timelines and we're living in parallel realities. And it may be that the Illuminati timeline, that what they're attempting to do is to enroll as many souls as possible into the parallel catastrophic timeline. And what we're trying to do is to teach as many people as possible to come into the positive timeline. Because in effect, all that exists is the positive timeline, and the catastrophic timeline is just a virtual reality because it's manufactured by HAARP. It's not a real end of the world scenario. It's done by planet-killing weapons. So there is a planet-killing scenario around 2012, probably architected in part with the 2012 meme. So that part of it is real. At the same time, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's a starseed scenario which is going on, and through a confederation of the upper dimensional ethical extraterrestrial civilizations, including the Pleiadians, the Syrians, the Alpha Centaurians, and others, many of us are here under that program. Large numbers of starseeds are now being born into this planet with expanded 12-strand DNA. Early indigos, like most of us here, are expanding our 2-strand DNA to 3-strand DNA and to 6-strand DNA, depending on our individual efforts. So we are creating the positive timeline, and we are creating what is the genuine 2012 scenario, which is not a catastrophic scenario, but which is the expansion of consciousness. So we have to be able to parse out all of these real parallel strands that are going on in this 2012 thing. But I myself now look at the following as significant dates: 2015, 2016, which is where the Galactic Governance Council has said that they may want to intervene and 2023 and 2025, which is when we've gotten an indication that we're really going to have a stabilized landing of Christ consciousness and of paradise on earth on the planet.
Great.
Just to give some of the history of this, intelligence findings were made in the early 1970s by the U.S. Department of Defense that there might be a planetary catastrophe around that time. I was involved in one of those studies, which was a probe via chronovisor that was undertaken at ITT Defense Communications in Nutley, New Jersey on November 5th of 1971. During that probe, I personally witnessed the U.S. Supreme Court building under about 100 feet of water. Now, the fact that our permanent secret government has invested trillions of dollars in building deep underground military bases in the Four Corners area of the United States is undisputed. It's all over the internet, and if you regard that information as apocryphal, I would cite, you asked for sources, it's been touted on the Parsons Corporation website, which is the old Ralph M. Parsons company that my father was employed for, that they are the makers of the drilling equipment for the deep underground military bases. So that's a settled question. What is not a settled question is whether the remote sensing in time that was performed delivered actionable intelligence for what we're going to be experiencing on our timeline. And so while I think it's possible that we may see a planetary catastrophe, I think what we can do is set our intent for what we deserve individually and as a collective, which is a planetary cultural renaissance in 2012 rather than a planetary catastrophe.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much. Now, I'm sure we could spend a whole conference talking about this and many of the topics that you mentioned. As we close this conference with Mark's talk, let's close the panel discussion with Mark Passio, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Bob. And Nick, thanks for posing that question at the end. I'm just going to chime in briefly on the 2012 phenomenon. I would just like to say that I don't think anything is assured. I think we write the outcome, and it's up to us. So it isn't an assured cataclysm. It isn't an assured ascension. Which one of those realities we step into collectively is up to all of us collectively. That's what it's up to. 2012 is what is known as a kairos. It's a Greek word which means opportunity. It is simply a window of opportunity. And depending on our choices and actions, we will make a decision as to what the future destiny of our species will be. So with that, I would like to ask people respectfully to please stick around for one more brief thing. And I would like everyone to give a phenomenal round of applause to all of our wonderful speakers for the Free Your Mind Conference 2011.
Mark ended his talk with saying that Sophia is truth. Sophia is here. She's inside all of us. She's a divine spark. She's the cosmic mother of all starseeds. And just remember Sophia, please.
Wisdom. So I would respectfully ask the speakers to exit the stage. And what I would like to do now is to have all of the Free Your Mind 2011 conference organizers to please come up to the stage. You know who you are. If you were involved in the organization of this event, please come up to the stage now. We're missing some people because there were other people who helped out. Where's Nick Launchar? Come on up. Nick, you helped out a lot. Jennifer, you lend us the projector for use, please. Jennifer, come on up. Nick, where's Jennifer? Jennifer, come up here. Come on. Nick, did Nick leave yet? Nick Launchar? No? Have him come up. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people who gave of their time, their effort, their dedication, their money, their hearts to put this conference on and make it happen. Brian, you get up here too. Come on, get up here. Okay? Please give the biggest round of applause for all of these wonderful people. Because this conference would not have happened without each and every one of them.